Hi, I'm here with Julie Rose. And Julie, thank you so much for joining us today. Julie has an amazing journey that she started during the pandemic, where she made the conscious choice to take a sabbatical and really adventure and prioritize travel, both domestically and now she's living abroad in Mexico. And a lot of the members in our group, they've reached out to their boutique travel advisor and they've asked questions about traveling solo. And we also have had clients who have extended their travel for longer periods of time due to the fact that they're able to work virtually. And Julie has learned so much during the process. And I want her to just share with everybody her story, her journey, and I think she can also help provide us valuable information on how her journey can help inspire you to allow for more travel in your life. Life gets busy. We have work-life balance issues, but prioritizing what makes us happy and what brings us joys is so important. And Julie's really been able to do that in her life. Thank you, Julie, so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to speak with all the folks here.
Julie, really, I think starting from where you made the decision to really kind of take travel more seriously, make it a priority. And I know Julie's background is in social media, marketing, blogging. So for her to be able to kind of share her story with others, kind of came more naturally than for some of us. I know when I'm traveling, I'm always like, okay, I have to post pictures. And I know many of our clients will ask, like, where are you? Post more pictures. And it just doesn't always come as natural to me. But for you, sharing your story was very natural. So, starting from the beginning would be fantastic.
Sure. So I think I've always loved travel. I think a lot of people have always loved travel, but I would take vacations, 1 week a year, 2 weeks a year, over and over again. And I felt like I never really got like an immersive, deep cultural experience. And, it's kind of that fast pace. Let me hit the top 5. Let me move on. Let me make sure I see the spots and like check a country off the list. But after a while, that kind of wasn't very fulfilling. And so I had the opportunity really about 4.5 years ago and planted the seed. I had just been laid off from a job. I had a lot of time. I wasn't going to jump right back into a stressful job somewhere else. So I wanted to take that time, and I ended up going backpacking by myself for 4 weeks in Europe and living out of a backpack, living small, having to figure out everything, my routes, my navigation, my lodging. And I felt this incredible sense of like achievement and accomplishment from all that. And then I also sort of realized, gosh, I have a lot of things. So I started to sort of prioritize experience over possessions. And I sort of right then and there decided I want to travel more long term. I want to really get to the essence of places. And that, again, seed was planted. I got back to the States. I started a job and I started sort of percolating in my mind, how do I make a life with more travel a possibility? And so, as you know, the pandemic 2 years ago happened and we were all sort of locked down, locked at home. And I started to crave travel more and more and sort of decided, gosh, what's keeping me stable? What's keeping me grounded? It's kind of my house in Phoenix and all of the things in it. And so I sort of just decided, hey, I'm going to become a nomad. I'm going to travel full time. I'm going to get rid of the house, get rid of all of the things and just, be in motion. And so I sold my house and on September 4th, 2020, basically drove away from Phoenix with the things I decided to keep in my car and my dog. And we traveled all around the US. I was working remotely, working from anywhere. Traveled all around the US, a little bit of Canada. And then in December 2021, I decided, I really wanted to have a fuller experience when I traveled. I didn't want to have to look at the clock and go to meetings and occupy my brain elsewhere. So I decided to quit. I decided to focus on growing my blog and then just really having just the best time as I travel. And I knew that, hey, I accomplished all 50 states in the US. It's time for me to go to Mexico and kind of conquer Mexico. And now I'm here. I'm living on savings. I'm doing a lot of slow travel, and I'm really just enjoying this time, this career break, and seeing what opportunities lie far ahead, but really focusing on what's happening right now.
And when you're traveling abroad, and you mentioned a term, you called it slow travel. So I think that that's a great term. I know in my life, and I know that a lot of people, don't necessarily have the flexibility, whether it's their families, their jobs. But when you do travel, sometimes it's to the extent you can extend that trip. Maybe it takes more planning, or it takes more maneuvering, or taking less vacation days around the holidays so that you can take a 2-3 week vacation to really immerse yourself into a culture or a location. Because when you're traveling too fast, again, the memories, I think, aren't necessarily as cherished or as memorable, because it just is happening so fast. You can't really focus in the moment. So explain how you define slow travel, because I found that to be a really interesting way to describe kind of what I think we're both referring to.
Yeah, I think for one, slow travel is hugely trending just for the reasons that you mentioned, because I think people were rushing, people were always planning ahead, thinking ahead of all the things they needed to do, and not really enjoying the moment that they're in and appreciating all of sort of the small day-to-day things. And so I think, to me, slow travel is staying in a place long enough that you kind of go beyond the top 10. You sort of start to be part of the community, and you're seeing people, you're making friends, you're seeing them more than once. You're doing maybe the adulting type things that you would do in the States. I'm getting my laundry done. I'm getting my hair done. I'm going, getting all of these things, these chores, these errands. I'm figuring out how to do them wherever I am. And I think that's when you really just start to discover, this is the way of life. This is, the speed. This is how the culture and the community behaves and thinks and acts on a day-to-day basis. And you just get like a really, really rich, really meaningful experience.
So true. And I think even if we're referring to, if you spend 3 to 4 days in a city or in a small town, and instead it's, even if you just double that to 4 to 8 days, it can make a world of a difference as far as your impression and your ability to kind of leave a mark on that destination. Because you can more than likely do things where, instead of just visiting the primary sites that maybe attracted you to a particular destination, you have some downtime to spend a half a day in a park, where otherwise you might
Mm-hmm.
think there's just too many things to see and do to just stop what we're doing and spend a half day doing nothing at a park while we're traveling. Or maybe it's not caring that you've spent, a half hour drinking your coffee and finding yourself there 4 or 5 hours later, just having conversation with others that you meet. So in talking about the people that you meet, I'm sure you're meeting locals, but you're also meeting other travelers, perhaps, expats, retirees that are living abroad or vacationing for extended periods of time. But just talk about the socialization of traveling abroad on a sabbatical.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've emphasized, yes, I solo travel. I'm out jet setting, just me and my dog. But I think there is sort of a myth that solo travelers are like out there on an island, like in a bubble, that you must be lonely or you must have nobody to talk to. But that is absolutely false, not the case. I mean, sure, if you really want to be alone, I'm sure you can find those activities that you are. But I have met so many people as I've been solo traveling, And I kind of think about it like this: when you're solo traveling, you're kind of looking out. You have the opportunity to be approached, to sort of see more. Um, and when you're with somebody else, you're kind of like, you know, face to face with them, and you're kind of missing what's happening out here. And I have, like you said, Angie, I've met tons of Mexicans, tons of other travelers, retirees, digital nomads. Um, and I've actually made some very good friends that I would like come back and visit, that have invited me to come back and stay with them. And I think what's really special about traveling and meeting sort of other travelers is that you already have something in common. You already have sort of a similar worldview and similar interest, which is, one of the building blocks of a friendship. So, I just can't say enough good things about solo travel and all the amazing people that I've met.
I like the topic of solo travel as well, because it's one thing to pack your bags and move abroad. And then there's another, solo travel could be a week vacation or it could be extended. So we're kind of talking about two different things, but in your case, it applies to your journey. But I have, particularly, whether it's a lot of our women clients will come to me and talk about they would love to solo travel, but there's some element of fear as far as safety, or maybe I want to do something that really allows myself to experience the journey the way I would like to experience it, and they're a little intimidated by joining a group, not knowing if a group would impede on their plans as far as how that journey would be on their own. And I think that there's a multitude of ways to really look at solo travel. I think personally, when I do a trip and I'm meeting other people, there is still that element of solo travel, because I'm willing to break away from the group to really prioritize experiences that are important to me. If I want to take a walk around the city and I'm with a group and they would prefer to have, cocktails or to do something else, I'm willing to pull away and to do the things that I like to do. And so I've learned to incorporate some element of solo travel in all my trips. Even when I'm traveling with my family, as much as I love hiking, it's not a priority for them. So I look for opportunities to carve out some time where I can do the things that I enjoy doing. And then I'm mindful of, allowing my husband the same opportunity. So I think it's a fun topic, and I think it intimidates some people. So maybe we could quickly talk about how to gradually incorporate solo travel, as well as some of the things you've learned that have really helped you stay safe and be more confident in solo traveling.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, solo travel and moving abroad and anything like that. I mean, it requires the same traits. It takes the same kind of qualities. And by the way, those qualities don't just appear overnight. I think for me, I really honed them and developed them. And when I was younger, I would do, maybe some place that was a little bit closer to home. Maybe that was English speaking. Maybe it was a shorter duration. Maybe I was with the comfort of, friends and family. And, I consider all of those things as confidence building activities. And as I sort of, achieved this trip and had a great time here and figured out how to do this and this and this, once I started to get more and more comfortable, then it was let me do longer, let me do full time, let me do a different language, let me do, completely different culture. And I had built up the confidence and the courage, really, because I was able to, I got all those in the bag. Now I can go ahead and like see what's next and see what's bigger and stranger and more scary, but ultimately more fulfilling to me. So I think, one thing that I want to stress to all of your listeners is it's not overnight. It's not just like all of a sudden you woke up and you're this superwoman. It does take getting used to. And I think you just kind of start. And maybe if it's, hey, I want some comfort in numbers, do a tour. Maybe I want to stay a little closer to home. All of those it's perfectly viable, because it helps build up your confidence for maybe that like pipe dream trip that you want to someday achieve, but maybe right now it just seems too overwhelming. And then as far as your other question, Angie, I think as far as safety goes, one, it's kind of keeping your wits about you. Always be aware of your surroundings and never, like, don't let yourself put your guard down. I think it's also a lot about attitude. Don't don't act like a victim. Don't make yourself an easy target. It can be confidence. It can be, don't look at your phone. It could be use technology in certain ways. For example, here's a little hack. Instead of looking at your phone for directions, because your awareness is not in front of you, you can map on your phone. If you have an Apple Watch, your Apple Watch can sort of signal you turn left, turn right. And then it just looks like I'm looking at the time. I'm going left, So there's ways to kind of blend in and look a little bit more like a local and make yourself less of a target. So I think that's very important. And there's a whole lot of other like tips I've put on my blog. But I think the other thing I would really like to stress is I think we have this like skepticism and this fear, especially maybe because of the American media, that people out there are out to get us and they're going to scam us and they're going to rob us and all of this stuff, and we're just not safe. But I have been met with just the most incredible kindness, the best welcome in so many places I've been to. And I 100% think the vast, vast majority of people do not want to get you. That's not their intention. The world is not just full of all these bad guys. So I think if we sort of remember that, give somebody a chance, to surprise you, and I'll always keep your wits about you at the same time, and trust your intuition as well.
Right. I mean, you have to be careful not to be naive or to stand out as a target, but I still truly believe a trusting person is going to attract another trusting person. So it is really reading the cues when you're interfacing with other people to feel like whether or not that's somebody that you can trust, or if you're in a situation, also being mindful of other people being around you, because there is some level of safety in numbers. So just because you're solo doesn't mean that you're, again, we'll preface this fact, you're not alone. I mean, you're in these environments where you're embracing the people around you. I also, you talked about how you have to build up a comfort level with solo travel and build that confidence. And I think it can start in your own home environment, in your own community. For me, I've always been that kid that could go have lunch by myself, between school and a dance lesson, or the idea of going to the movies by myself doesn't really intimidate me. So breaking some of those fears, if those are, fears that you might have, is a good starting point. And again, maybe you're not comfortable with introducing yourself to strangers. So start on an airplane where obviously, not everybody likes to socialize on an airplane, but just, an opportunity to talk for 4 or 5 minutes, whether it's on an airplane or maybe it's joining a meetup group in your local area of people who are also interested in a travel experience like you, where you step outside of your comfort zone and you learn how to meet new people, because that's a skill set you're going to likely want to have when you're traveling more independently. And then I strongly believe that you can travel solo while also having other travel companions. So there are opportunities to join a small group that's traveling to a destination that's of interest to you, whether it's people that that you're traveling with and you're forming that group on your own, or there are some amazing tour companies that offer groups, and they do focus on different levels of interest, whether you want to join a group that's focused more on the arts or one that's more adventurous, where you're kayaking and biking on different days. And then, of course, it's choosing that destination. So to me, if you've never done something on your own, just getting on a plane and meeting a group at a hotel is a big step to then move forward into what you can do as a solo traveler. And then maybe the next time you do it, you stick with a group, but maybe you tack on 2 or 3, 4 or 5 days where you venture on your own so that you do work up to it. I mean, what Julie's doing is not, it's atypical. It's very inspiring, but she's also telling her story in a way that this can be done. It can be done midway in your career where you're taking more of a sabbatical like Julie, or it could be something you experience between an undergrad and grad school, or it could be something between, becoming an empty nester or during your retirement years, or even making it more permanent. So Julie, I'd love for you to touch on, like, where do you go from here? Or are you just taking it day by day where you haven't really determined where next, and whether it's staying in Mexico longer or venturing elsewhere?
Well, Angie, I mean, there's probably a good chance I won't go back to a traditional job. I mean, I'm loving this, and I think that there are a lot of opportunities for me moving forward. It can be scary to sort of quit your job, to sort of like leave it all to the unknown, and a lot of people kind of question my decision, but I think the opportunities really just open up for you when you decide to give something else a chance. So, that being said, I think there are a lot of opportunities ahead. I'm also writing a memoir all about this journey and my decisions and experiences leading up to it. But then also, I'm just enjoying this time. I worked really hard for 14 years, basically thousands of hours a year, and ground myself deep into, the stress and the focus and all of that. And hey, I don't want to wait until I'm 65 to enjoy my life. I want to make sure I'm doing it now. So the next, year or two really looks like a couple more months in Mexico. I'm here in Mexico for 6 months, kind of traveling around and spending more concentrated times in some places. But after Mexico, I think, depending on the state of the world, flying somewhere, going to some other countries. And then I think I actually probably will get temporary residency in Mexico and sort of make that more of my home base, because I really do love it here, and obviously lots of good reasons to live in Mexico.
And I've been following you on different platforms, Instagram and your blog. You write some really authentic stories that I think are very helpful and informative and fun. And I really think, sharing with us the places you've traveled to Mexico, we'll pull up your some pictures, because what's interesting and fascinating is how, like you said, when you're in a destination for a much longer period of time, it gives you the opportunity to explore some places that maybe aren't first to mind, and you have more flexibility because you are driving from place to place,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
So it gives you the flexibility. I mean, when you're flying place to place, you don't get all the opportunities to stop and see different villages and scenery that you're able to see when you're really, traveling by car across country.
Yeah, that's been one of the really rewarding things about Mexico, is being able to drive. And sure, I was a little bit scared at first, but I've now driven over 4,000 kilometers and have not had any issues. So knock on wood, but it has allowed me to sort of go to sort of off the beaten path places, maybe the more obscure cities and Pueblo Mágicos. And that term, just FYI, it's a designation by the Mexican government for cities, small cities, more like towns, that have a lot of cultural and historical significance. And, wouldn't probably have that same opportunity, or it wouldn't be made much more difficult if I were flying or taking buses and that kind of thing. But no, I've been around so many places in Mexico. I've even had Mexicans tell me that you've been more places than I've been in Mexico, and I've lived here my entire life. So I think that's kind of fun. And I'm definitely recapping all of these places on my website as well. So I don't know if I'm able to scroll right now if you guys are seeing this, but Mexico is so diverse. It's so beautiful. The landscapes and the art and the culture and the food, and there's just so much to do and so much to see. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to make sure I spend a significant amount of time in Mexico. And honestly, I don't know if I've scratched the surface.
And as far as like some of the things that you feel that you've been able to experience that you can say would be a takeaway for somebody that can maybe do a better job of being mindful of their environment, even if it happens to only be a week or a 2-week vacation. How can somebody who doesn't have the same luxury to make traveling abroad more permanent, how would they be able to create more value in their experience based on some of the things that you've learned that are applicable to a vacation?
I mean, that's hard because really, like the first recommendation obviously is have more time, but I know that's not possible to everybody. So maybe it's don't just do all the touristy things. Go off the beaten path a little bit, and maybe that means, take some recommendations from locals. Ask about hidden gems. Have conversations with the people around you, and break out a little bit, break out of the typical experience, and then you might have just something a little bit more rewarding and a little bit more fulfilling than if you sort of went along with all the crowds and all the tourists, the throngs of tourists, that maybe you got to see a little bit more of authentic Mexico, or authentic whichever country you're in.
And I would say kind of my takeaway from traveling, and the more I travel, some of the things that I learn as I'm trying to really allow myself a more thoughtful experience that's more encompassing of not just, especially when you visit a place and now it's your third or fourth time visiting, even if it's over a course of a multitude of visits, is that if I allow more downtime in my vacations, because when you have that downtime, so, maybe every second or third day, you're very conscientious to just allow that day to be influenced by your surrounding more so than over planned. So I think it's important to allow yourself. And one of the things I like to do is just find 3 or 4 coffee shops or 4 or 5 parks and make sure that I incorporate spending time in those destinations when I'm on a vacation. Like I just make it a point that I'm going to do those things and find pockets of time on my vacation to say there's flexibility, but these are the things that I'm interested in doing when I am visiting a particular place. And I think there are ways to plan to meet locals. I know we have some great suppliers abroad where they actually create those experiences where you're not necessarily being guided, but more so you're doing activities that come more naturally with locals. So it takes a little arranging, obviously, because you can't necessarily predict that a local is going to be open-minded and available and wanting to do the same things at the same time, but it does give you that immersion, or a cooking class at somebody's house, or joining someone for a festivity. I know when we were in Siena, I mean, it just kind of happened to be chance, but when we were there were all these festivities and families sitting together, and there wasn't a lot of tourism at the time because we were still pretty shut down, and we just felt like we were welcomed, and we felt like the whole experience was guided in the sense that people were sharing their experiences, sharing their tradition. And it was just a very impactful experience. And sometimes you can plan for those things by knowing that there's these festivals and building them into your vacation. And then other times it's so fun to leave it to chance.
I totally agree with you. I think I've had the best experiences I've had are the ones that I sort of allowed to spontaneously happen. And of course, if you're scheduled and itinerized up the wazoo, you won't have any time or any opportunity for those spontaneous experiences. And that's where really a lot of magic happens.
Julie, I so appreciate that you joined us today and really gave us a better sense of what it's like to be living abroad in Mexico. And you just seem so happy and as if you're enjoying it. And your story, which you do share. So Julie has her web address shared here, I believe, Julie. Let's see here. Well, go ahead and share it. It's Julie B. Rose is your Instagram account, correct? At Julie B. Rose. Okay, so follow Julie on Instagram, and there you can access her blog and her storytelling. I think it's really a unique story, and it does take a lot of courage, and I'm very proud of you. I think it's awesome what you're doing, and I'm vicariously, following you, and I think others will want to do the same. And I'd love for you to come back, especially as you experience new destinations like you talked about, and just recap us on how things have changed, and letting us know the different things that you've learned along the way.
Definitely. I would love to. You're right. I am having a blast. I'm so happy, and I'm really kind of learning more about myself. I'm getting stronger. I'm getting more determined and more accomplished. And I just think, traveling is one of the best things you can do for yourself, because if we're not curious, what are we? We're kind of boring and complacent people. So I
Right.
think curiosity is something we should all seek out.
A lot of people have asked me why I love to travel so much. It's clear it's obviously, one of my passions, given I turned it into a business with my co-founder, Janet Semenova. But for me, it's that ability to not, it is truly that opportunity to disconnect from your everyday life, your home environment, and sometimes even people around you that have known you for years and years and years, and to be in a new environment, to recalibrate and to reprioritize. Like, travel for me almost opens up a whole new persona, because it allows me to reset. And I
Mhm.
sometimes struggle with doing that when I'm living that, day to day, with the responsibilities that come with commitments and
Mhm.
housework and raising kids and all of their activities and commitments to attend a party or a charity event. So for me, travel is really, it's also the destination, by all means, being able to travel different places. But I would be dishonest not to focus on how it has an internal impact on me,
Mhm.
regardless of the destination. I've just, you have destinations that are high on your list, or those places where you could revisit over and over, like Italy, Croatia, or some of those destinations. I'm just so anxious to explore South America more, as I have greater opportunity to extend my travels. But it is also embracing that ability to see yourself in a different light. So, and again, it's brought you joy. It brings me joy as well. So thank you again. And oh, I would love for you to take a second today or whenever, and post the information that you shared regarding some of the small destinations within Mexico that have that certification. And what was that certification again?
It's called Pueblo Mágico, and it means magic town. And there's about 132. So there's a
Okay.
lot. But I'm
Like a
trying to go to a
UNESCO
lot of
list
them.
of, specific to Mexico, correct? As it
Mhm.
relates to city. Yes, please share that in the group. We'd appreciate that.
Definitely. And thank you for having me. And if anybody wants, advice, or has a question, or wants to drop any kind of comment at all, like you said, Angie, it's Julie B. Rose on Instagram, and then also juliedevive.com on the web.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.